What are the rules of improv?
The rules of improv, well, yes and everyone talks about. A lot of people know that, but that's really important. You have to agree to someone's idea and then you have to add something to it. You can't just agree to it or everything dies. So if you say you're a doctor, I go, yes, and I have a foot infection. And then you would go, yes, and here's the medicine. And I go, yes, and. So that is what keeps the scene forward. As soon as someone says no, it ruins it. I'm a doctor. No, you're not. Whoops. Okay. Scene's over. Yes, and is one. Another one is don't wimp is what we used to call it, where you want to have a real emotional response. So if someone walks up and says, oh, there's just been a car accident, your response should be, what? Not, oh no, I guess people got hit. Because you'll get a laugh in that second for that, but then the scene's over. So yes, and don't wimp. Always be committed to 100%, which is similar to the last rule. I mean, those are the ones that I follow. And then, of course, when you get advanced and you're working with people that have been doing improv for years, you can break those rules, knowing that they know you're breaking them. So if I want you to follow me in a scene, we're doing an improv scene, I want you to follow me, I go, don't you follow me, which is my cue to you to know, yeah, well, he wants me to follow me, because that's, so you don't yes and my don't. You know what I'm saying? That's advanced level improv stuff. But for most people that are starting or learning, it's yes and everything.
So that's that old adage, in order to break the rules, you have to whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you know the rules, you can play with them. But it takes a long time to get those rules down, to be able to listen.
What's the formula for good comedy?
I think the formula for good comedy is a small room. I think people should be cold and not hot. And they should be in the dark, and the audience and the stage should be lit. Doing a comedy show where the audience is lit is terrible. If they're hot, it's terrible. They have to be cold, because then it builds up tension, and then the laugh makes them let it out more. Cold, dark, the more compact and enclosed, because the sound bounces off the walls of the laughter better. I'm trying to think what else. People you can trust on stage. You got to know that if you're going to do something, they're going to be there for you and not be in it for themselves. Like, I'm going to get all the laughs. It's like, no, I have to know we're a team. So you have all those going. That's my favorite way to do comedy. You can still do a good comedy show in a big theater, or you can still do a good comedy show if people are hot. But if you want all the variables that I like happening at once, it's those.
And why dark? Is that because people want to? Why
people
dark?
Are self-conscious. If I can see the people around me, it's harder to be vulnerable to laugh than if it's dark and you can't see anyone. Often we'll do corporate shows, which are companies will hire comedians to come out and do shows. And in the corporate environment, you have competitive people, and they're all lit up, and they're all at tables, and there's a real challenge of them not wanting to laugh, because they think laughing is weakness. And so, sometimes we'll do these big, powerful corporations, I won't say any names, and you can see that they want to laugh, but if Mike sees me laugh, he'll think I'm weak, and then I won't get the promotion. So that's why I think keep it dark, keep them cold, don't let them see each other.
Right. We just needed to put some Dockers on you, and it would have been perfect.
Right.
Casual Friday, and
yeah,
right. No, that's a great. That's really interesting, yeah. And it's kind of like A Patient Man in a way too.
Yeah,
what you're comparing it to. What's your favorite comedy documentary? Like the Joan Rivers. There's all these different
comedy
documentaries about booking.
I can't remember what my favorite.
Carey. No.
I mean, I know I've seen some. I haven't seen enough. My favorite comedians are my trifecta of funny is Bob Newhart, Steve Martin, and Dave Letterman. There are other great ones, of course, but those are the three that the trifecta.
Right. Very dry,
Well, Bob Newhart he's the best straight man ever. And he's the only straight man, I think, that got bigger laughs than the comedy people around him, right? So think about Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld's very funny, but Kramer and Ellen and
Elaine
and Jason Alexander, they would get the bigger laughs. Because Jerry's kind of the straight guy, and they're like, the crazy ones around him. every sitcom has the anchor and then the crazy people around it. But Newhart, his deadpan regular man, was so damn funny that he got more laughs as the straight man than all the crazy cast around him. Steve Martin completely changed stand-up comedy because it was very, Lenny Bruce, suit and a tie, telling, or jokes, joke. And he came up and just did absurdism. And it was just crazy and silly and wacky, which is a lot like improv, even though he was a stand-up. And then Letterman was just, a genius of just the whole ironic movement of just doing things poorly on purpose, which was just so funny. So they all kind of created their own thing.
Right, and his top 10 lists.
Oh yeah,
were great.
But just the way he would do a segment on the show, like a normal hidden camera segment would be someone hiding behind a thing, and someone walks up, and then you scare them, and his was just a guy that would walk up, someone would go, "Hey, do you have the time?" And they go, "Yes." But he goes, "Look, there's a camera." And it was like, wait, what? Just anti-comedy almost. It was a complete antithesis to the well-produced comedy bit. And he was doing it and smiling while he did it. So that was great.
Yeah, and Taxi too. Louis was he more of the straight one around all of the...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Do you think that there's regional humor?
Oh, yes, there is regional humor, absolutely. And it's one of the things we do when we get to a town. First thing we'll say is, what's the part of town where all the hookers hang out? Because there's always a
good
town.
To know, yeah.
In Orlando, it was called Bithlo, where the rednecks are, the hooker. Where's that dumpy part of town? And you just remember that, okay, and then just use it in a scene at some point, and they'll cheer. He knows us. He knows us. It's like, no, I just asked somebody what your bad part of town was, and just said it. You don't even have to make a joke. You can just say it. Hey, I'm driving over to Bithlo. What? He knows our town. So.
Or you could, it's that one that's got the arms folded, like, was the traffic bad coming from Bithlo? You can kind of poke fun and use that too.
Also, it changes over the ages too. I mean, I remember doing not long ago, a college show with Wayne. And, we were doing our silly scene, and I pulled out a gun, like a character in a scene like I would have done a million times. And, all right, buddy, give me. And the gasp from the college kids seeing a fake, they was just doing this. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. I've been doing this kind of thing for 20 years doing improv when you're a robber or, sticking somebody up. And they were uncomfortable with me doing that with my fingers, which was bizarre.
Interesting. Yeah. So we have to be more,
You have to know you have to play to the room. But the room doesn't just mean the room, it means the country or the state or whatever's going on. We used to do a game called Moving People, which we stand completely still. We played on Whose Line a bunch too, and we can't move. The audience volunteer has to move us. So but now because of the, touching inappropriate, and so now it's like, I don't know if we can play those games anymore where you touch people or get touched, just because even though you're just trying to be funny, all it takes is one person to say, I was uncomfortable, and then you don't get hired anymore. So.
Yeah, and now we have like these safe spaces and everything, where, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, but I think back to, you would tune into Howard Stern because Howard Stern would only give you.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't going there to get an unfiltered, censored. You went there for a reason.
Exactly.
And I guess it's good to be inclusive, and
sure.
But then at what point are we being too sensitive, and then it takes away?
The pendulum always goes a little too far, and then it comes back and it corrects, and then it overcorrects, and so it's it's a constant. You can look at the history of humankind and see that's a pattern, and it happens, and you just have to, as a comedian, you have to adjust to it.
But with the regional, is, let's say, an East Coast audience going to want a faster, maybe delivery of something?
No, I don't see that. East Coast. I mean, we've done shows all over too. We've been to Australia maybe 8 to 10 times. We've been to Europe. We've been Canada. Nothing about the pacing changes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. California, you could be more Jeff Spicoli-like or something.
There's different words you can and can't say that, like saying, "Oh, you're such a spaz" here means just nothing. Oh, hey, you're a spaz, nothing. I found out in London, wow, that's like saying the R word about something. They're like, whoa, you can't say. And I'd never heard that ever.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, like knickers. I didn't know that knickers were underwear in I guess certain parts of Europe. Yeah, and knickers in the 80s were these like, they don't wear them anymore, but they were, they were a fad, and different things. So yeah, I guess you're right, but that's interesting.
Yeah.